Good evening, everybody. I said it was going to happen. Faith Goldy said it was going to happen as it was happening to her. And it happened. Faith Goldy says, quote, PPC candidate banned from climate change town hall for her views on sex ed. So many on the right refused to hear my warnings. I was banned from debates while running in Toronto, and I warned them they were next. Turns out I was right again. And here's Amazing Polly. And I heard Amazing Polly a few weeks ago, and she was talking on an interview, and I thought I had accidentally stolen her name, but then I realized it was Polly with a Y, and I felt better. But Amazing Polly, who you should watch if you haven't, says, quote, we knew it when it happened to Faith Goldy. Democracy in Canada is dead. And this is Paul Mitchell tweeting. This is PPC Vancouver Kingsway. Says PPC candidate at Laura Lynn TT deplatformed for her having the wrong values. Is this how democracy works in Canada? Christians who don't want young children indoctrinated to change their gender can't speak at town hall meetings? At Maxime Bernier. And here's one more, PPC HQ tweeting. Our opponents are really, really afraid. Not surprising they would want to exclude Laura Lynn TT after she destroyed the other candidates, including at the Jagmeet Singh in the first debate. And there's a link to the same link that's been in all three tweets, the Burnaby Now paper that's reporting this. And it says Burnaby South candidates invited to town hall on Saturday to talk climate change. It says candidates for the Burnaby South by-election have been invited to a town hall this Saturday in Burnaby to discuss if they will deliver on fighting climate change if elected. Just don't expect People's Party of Canada candidate Laura Lynn Thompson to be there. Organizers of the event, including the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, didn't invite Thompson due to her strong opposition to the SOGI education materials implemented by the BC government. We didn't think it was appropriate, said James Hutt, a CPUW representative for the event. Hutt said the federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh had confirmed he is coming, while Conservative candidate Jay Shin had a scheduling conflict. Hutt said they are waiting to hear if a Liberal candidate Richard Lee will be available. The topic is the role of public services in the transition to the greener economy. So it's interesting that because of her views on provincial and education stuff, and it's been well spoken about. People have documented Laura Lynn's standings and her pro-life leanings, her opposition to teaching gender fluidity, etc. And I think it's interesting that they're now using this as a reason to deplatform somebody. Faith Goldy was labeled as a white supremacist, so it's not just being a white supremacist, it's denying biological science now. If you say, or it's agreeing with biological science, it's saying that there are men, biological men, and there are biological women, and that's what there are, instead of saying the current liberal theory, gender theory that's being pushed as fact, or was being pushed as fact in Kathleen Wynne's Ontario, is that gender is a spectrum and that everybody falls somewhere on the gender spectrum, which is, again, goes against science, really. I mean, if you look at biology, you are a man or a woman, male or female, right? So anyway, it's interesting. They'll use anything to deplatform people, anything. And it doesn't matter how based in fact that is. Faith Goldy is hardly a white supremacist. She is anti-immigration, but that doesn't equal being a white supremacist. I'd never heard her say anything white supremacist or that would lead me to believe she was a white supremacist. And yes, I watched the interview where she said the 14 words. You should go watch it too if you're interested in that. I watched all of it. The Daily Stormer interview as well. So these things are not what the media makes them out to be. And I think we've established that and proved that. So the PPC candidate is being deplatformed, and not because she's a white supremacist, but because she goes against the agreed upon gender theory that's being pushed as fact by radical leftists who have occupied government and pushed this theory forward. Wild. Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier. This Toronto Star article talking about Maxime Bernier being an alt-right figure and a white nationalist, and they've got neo-Nazi in here as well. Nazis are socialists, National Socialist Party. The Nazis were a National Socialist Party. So please go look that up. If anybody starts calling you a Nazi, remind people that Nazis are leftists. They were socialists. They were communists, right? They weren't they weren't right wingers. They weren't for capitalism and freedom of speech and upward mobility to have the ability to make deals, right? Like this is not. They're fundamentally different things. State controlled everything, or let the market decide. Fundamentally different schools of thought, right? Very different. And I'm not going to even get into it. The link is in the description if you want to read it. It is just a hit piece. It is blatantly terrible. This is another hit piece from Global News released this morning at 10 a.m., February 9th at 10 a.m. It says, Jody Wilson-Raybould became thorn in Liberals' side before the SNC Lavalin case. She was terrible before this. It's incredible. I'm going to highlight some stuff. You should read the whole thing. It goes through, and the slant they used to spin it is quite interesting. But they recount the whole story, throwing in as much subtle digs at Miss Wilson-Raybould as they can, and I'll try and point them out. See if you can spot them, okay? In where I've highlighted here. Okay, quote: with the enthusiasm of a child being asked to apologize for stealing a cookie, she delivered the agreed upon line that moving from justice to veterans affairs was not a negative, that there was no world in which serving Canada's veterans had a downside. But the reality is she wasn't being moved because she was universally loved and doing a bang-up job. She was being moved because she had become a thorn in the side of the cabinet, someone insiders say was difficult to get along with, known to berate fellow cabinet ministers openly at the table, and who others felt they had trouble trusting. Less than a month later, Wilson-Raybould is at the center of one of the biggest storms to hit the Trudeau government. Allegations the Prime Minister or his aides pressured her to help Quebec corporate giant SNC Lavalin avoid a criminal prosecution and demoted her, to at least partly because she wouldn't cooperate. Trudeau has flatly denied the allegations. And I scroll down. Born into a political family, her father, Chief Bill Wilson, once told Pierre Trudeau, father of Justin, that his daughter or daughters were going to be prime ministers one day. Her relationship with her father is sometimes troubled, and one Indigenous source said it is impossible to talk about Jody without talking about her dad. I scroll down a little bit again. Wilson-Raybould does leave a significant legacy as Justice Minister. She shepherded two of the biggest changes to Canadian social policy in a generation: physician-assisted dying and legalized marijuana. She's very serious, very credible, said Sheila North, former Grand Chief of the Manitoba Kiiwetinoong. Sorry. Oh man, I'm not going to try it. The Northern Manitoba Chiefs Organization. I apologize for not trying it. I would just butcher it. It wouldn't be very good. It would just be an awful, terrible use. I wouldn't be able to say the name. Okay. Here, back to the article. She is bare-legged in minus 30 wind chill tough. That's how she publicly accepted her new role, or her new job outside Rideau Hall, a former BC Crown prosecutor who is assertive and knows her own mind. Any criticism of Wilson-Raybould for sticking up for her convictions, said North, is rooted in sexism. Someone who is very strong and assertive when it's a male, it's not even considered anything that's negative, she said. And the reason I say it's a hit piece is usually there's some kind of story in the article. There's they're trying to tell you something, but they're just slathering on kind of insult after insult while telling the story, kind of, and then the end just peters out in a really weird way. So it's a very strange article in my opinion. It's not often you see articles like that. Bernier weighs in, and a bunch of other high profile conservatives weigh in on this case as well, on the Jody Wilson-Raybould case. Maxime Bernier first, quote: "We knew big business like Bombardier." I got it, guys. Bombardier and GM can get billions in subsidies from politicians in Ottawa thanks to their connections. But now we know that they can get laws changed and pressure a justice minister to stop prosecution when they're in trouble. And here's a link to the PMO pressured Wilson-Raybould to abandon prosecution of SNC Lavalin. And this is number 2. The Liberal government amends the criminal code last year to help SNC Lavalin out of its legal troubles following fraud and corruption charges. And Minister Wilson-Raybould was shuffled from her post because she would not cave to pressure from the PMO to help the company. 3. These revelations in the GNM are extremely disturbing. They're evidence evidence of corruption at the highest levels of government. It's time to stop the crony capitalism that both liberals and conservatives have been practicing for decades. It's time to get rid of the corrupt elites in Ottawa. And that was in all caps. And I would agree. Here's Candace Bergen. It is abundantly clear that the current AG is not independent and not serving the best interests of Canadians, but rather the best interests of the PMO. And this is a CTV News report that says AG sees no justification for probe of allegations the Prime Minister's office interfered in the SNC Lavalin case, and CTV News. So CTV News is saying, no problem here. The AG says it's fine. It's probably fine. He says the Prime Minister didn't pressure him. And he's not blinking or nodding or anything. Everything looks totally fine. He's making the not racist okay sign. That's what he's doing. You know, like underwater where they have to do okay like that, the non-racist one. And Lisa Raitt is saying, quote, I am genuinely perplexed how an attorney general accountable to Parliament for all federal prosecutions in Canada wouldn't want to, at the very least, satisfy himself that there was no attempted political interference in an ongoing criminal prosecution. Admitting that he has not and will not speak to the former attorney general is astounding. He has made up his mind based upon what he was told by the Prime Minister. That's not independence. And then further signaling to the Liberal members on the Justice Committee that no inquiry is needed is disturbing. Why wouldn't he want to take a small portion of committee time to review and test the allegations? Otherwise, they will hang over this government's head. Yes, but they've just got to run out the clock, Miss Raitt. I think that's the point you're missing. So it's quite interesting to be watching this. Everybody's getting on board. This is a big scandal. This is the big scandal. And the deplatforming of our politicians, the deplatforming of anybody who is not agreeing with the narrow band in which they want the argument to be had, gets deplatformed, gets removed from the debate so the people can't have an honest understanding of the options on the table. So the People's Party is going to have even more of a difficult time breaking into the mainstream because of and who knows, maybe because they're doing this and because it's so blatant, it'll catapult the People's Party and people will see, because they're trying to censor them so much. And who knows, you need strong candidates in every riding. You need the people who have the ability to have charisma as well as understand what they're getting into, which is complicated, right? That being Ottawa, it's a hard place to affect change, right? So who knows? But this is not helping, and this is exactly what they did to Faith Goldy, and this is exactly what they're going to do during the general election. They're going to look for any excuse. They are going to deplatform. They're going to malign. They're going to call names. They are going to pull out every dirty trick in the book. I don't know what's going to happen. Stay tuned. I guess we'll find out together. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, is it Saturday? Saturday evening. Thanks for watching.